Like, what's the Jetsons' future look like potentially? And I'm not saying maybe it doesn't happen, but where's your brain at and looking into the future? Where do you think, like, where do you think this is going to go? How far are we going to go in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Where do you think things are going to go? Like, where people aren't thinking yet. So I know we see the technology, we see how it can improve life. We can see we got to use it more, but what's the future look like?
So I think just in general, like, Overjet's AI is going to impact every um, piece of the puzzle, right? So, we're talking about the diagnosis, the treatment planning, the treatment acceptance right now, which is one small piece of it. But there is no reason why this can not help in improving the scheduling, for example, depending on what the treatments need to take place, help in providing more guided surgeries, for example. So there's a lot to be done here. And I think for us, it is about utilizing the technology in such a way that we can help patient care and experience, and whatever form it takes to make that happen. Overjet, will be working on and really helping solve.
So, like, give me the Jetsons though, right? You remember the show Jetsons, like how they had like the crazy stuff that would bring in the food, and it was just like, man, that's crazy. They have a robot that brings in food. Like, what's the Jetsons' future look like potentially? And I'm not saying maybe it doesn't happen, but where's your brain at and looking into the future?
So I think, very quickly where it gets to is like more robotics getting involved, and, more automation happening across, whether it's the diagnosis piece of it or the treatment piece of it. And we're already seeing, the uh, 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 with Neosys and other companies kind of playing their part in that journey. But I would say, that future is going to happen. It's when, and these technologies are going to enable that future. That's more of like what you can picture probably. I would say what will have the most impact is actually trying to move the industry towards more lower cost, value based care kind of areas, which might not seem as sexy as Jetsons, but I think will have a lot of impact on the industry itself, and where we move away from just doing treatments, but rather move towards trying to keep patients healthy. And that's where, we're very excited about as well. And harder to imagine, in terms of like cool technology, but it's going to have the most impact on patient care.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just did a podcast yesterday with a dentist, and he has a couple. He has actually has quite a few offices, and some of them are Medicaid. And he's taking a lot of that technology that he has in his other offices over to his Medicaid office, and proving that he can do quality care faster for them. And yes, you have to spend more money up front for the technology, but he's like, I can produce more dentistry and give more quality dentistry to more people. And it was really cool to hear him break that down. And I feel like you are creating something that's going to allow more people to have treatment over time. I think that's huge, and just more healthy people overall. That just is a win-win-win for everybody. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you, so can you kind of explain the AI side of things? Because I know in every industry, AI is always thrown around, right? So sometimes people hear AI and they think of like robots following us around and doing crazy things. Some people think of AI as like people like reading thoughts, or like this machine that's self-thinking, that's carrying out things. Like, explain to me what AI means to you guys at Overjet and what that actually means.
Yeah, so I think AI isn't a concept that we're not familiar with, right? And we might not be familiar with that AI is being utilized in all these use cases, but I think probably even today you've interacted with AI, probably 100 times today. It was when you probably searched on Google, you were using AI was being used in the background. Any like major company is utilizing AI, whether it's again your Facebook, the picture recommendation that was or picture tagging that was done, or Netflix and was giving you recommendations. That's all AI. If you're wearing an, if you have a phone, you probably have familiar with Siri or Alexa. That's all AI. Different kinds of AI. It might be the recommendation engines, or it might be natural language processing, or it might be computer vision, depending on what it's doing. But right now, I think AI is something that's being utilized everywhere, and the concept is simple, right? It's machines demonstrating intelligence in a way, and here, what is real intelligence, and we can go deeper into those pictures. But generally, what we are talking about in these cases is, where you're creating these machine learning models which are learning from examples, that are learning from data, and just getting better over time, rather than you coding everything. So or just basic software here, where you basically tell the machine to do exactly what you want it to do. And here in this case, you create a model that can just learn from examples itself. Kind of mimicking how human brain work, but I think it's like a very simplification of
Yeah.
that, right? Brains are very complicated,
Hmm.
and but this is kind of like a mimicking of that kind of learning, the way we learn, how to read or alphabet, etc., by seeing examples and repeating it. Here, the case is you need to see a lot of
Yeah.
examples, so that's why it's so data heavy.